Catherine Park. I'm an immigration attorney in the United States. So the question is, can undocumented non-citizens who served honorably in the U.S. military naturalize as U.S. citizens? Yes. Although it depends on whether the U.S. was in a time of war or a time of peace during your service. For peacetime service, the path to citizenship will be limited to lawful permanent residents under the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 328. During wartime, all bets are off. Under Section 329 of the INA, if you're an undocumented non-citizen who entered the U.S. without inspection, you are still given a direct path to citizenship if you serve honorably in the U.S. military, have good moral character, meaning no criminal activity or anything like that. The problem, of course, is Section 329 offers a path to citizenship, but not a path to enlistment. Now, according to all of the U.S. military's recruiting materials, if you're not an LPR, you cannot enlist. But here's where we reach a gray area in the law. Title 10 of the United States Code, Section 504, says that only U.S. citizens or LPRs qualify for the U.S. Armed Forces. However, the Secretary of Defense can authorize for enlistment any person who's disqualified from enlistment if the Secretary determines that the person has critical skills or expertise vital to the national interest. So Title 10, Section 504 codifies the practice of the U.S. Armed Forces for dealing with fraudulent enlistment, where your commanding officer can discharge you if you used a false document to prove identity when you enlisted. But whether the commanding officer discharges you or not is discretionary, meaning he can discharge you, but he doesn't have to. If you've proven yourself in combat and you're not a troublemaker, the commanding officer might want to keep you on. Section 504 codifies the authority of your chain of command to make that decision. However, the military chain of command holds all of the cards. The military recruiter has no obligation to accept anyone for enlistment, and if you have no immigration status, the recruiter could notify U.S. immigration. Why was Section 504 enacted? Throughout American military history, fraudulent enlistments have occurred. For instance, when he was 14 years old, Mike Mansfield dropped out of 8th grade and used a fake ID to enlist in the U.S. Navy to fight in World War I. After the Navy, he went on to enlist in the U.S. Army and Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps is known for the really hard fighting, such that even Mike Mansfield had to work up to joining the Marine Corps, if you know what I'm saying. Now, that's how much Mike Mansfield loved America and everything she stands for. I think Section 504 was enacted in gratitude for the Mike Mansfields who risked their lives in combat for the United States. Despite the initial illegality, he was just too great of an American to prosecute for fraudulent enlistment. And he went on to become the longest-serving U.S. senator when he died at the age of 98. Fast forward to the year 2002. Juan Escalante is 19 years old. He graduates from high school. Now, if you examine this young man under a microscope, you would say he's an undocumented non-citizen in the year 2002. His parents had brought him in without inspection at the border. Now, he graduates from high school. He purchases a false green card for $50 and enlists in the U.S. Army. He isn't caught until later. But he ends up as a mechanic with the 3rd Infantry Division that led the attack on Baghdad during Operation Enduring Freedom. President Bush awarded Private Escalante's division a Presidential Unit Citation for extraordinary heroism. Private Escalante became a U.S. citizen under the INA Section 329. His case was very well publicized, and he had the support of his commanding officers. That's very important. The War on Terror began on September 11, 2001, and is still ongoing. You can invoke Section 329 if you meet the requirements, which include honorable service. So, for example, if you enlist several times and not every discharge you received was honorable, if at least one discharge was honorable, you can qualify to naturalize under 329. You can apply to naturalize after just 1 year of service, which means if you're in the service when you apply, you could become a citizen during your service. However, if you receive a dishonorable discharge before accruing at least 5 years of honorable service, your citizenship could be revoked just for that reason. If you find yourself irreversibly at odds with your commanding officers and there's just no way to reconcile, you may have to leave. I think it would be a dishonorable discharge, but if you can manage an uncategorized discharge, USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, says you're still eligible for Section 329 relief. If you're watching this video and you're seeking permanent residence, if you had a family member who was serving in the U.S. military but was killed in action, you could apply for posthumous citizenship on their behalf under Section 329, and then later apply for naturalization yourself as a derivative beneficiary.